Good afternoon. I'm Steve Gladys, and today we're going to talk about the coach approach to team decision making. Organizations have to make decisions all the time, some of them bigger than others. But when you get to the big ones like performance appraisal systems, why should we have one? Should we have one that looks like this? Should we have one that looks like that? Or those sorts of decisions, you can solve those kinds of problems within the organization using what I call the coach approach to decision making, which is both a combination of good executive coaching and executive team coaching, and also a combination of action learning, which is a theory that was developed by a guy named Reg Ravens, who many years ago in the mid-40s in England. The process was made to use with very high achieving teams, people with high intellect, to get them all to work together, not at contretemps. Ravens was a master at this and did so. This process has only really a couple of rules. One is that you have an action learning coach who can come in and out of the conversation, mainly can be concerned about the process, not necessarily the content. And then people can only make comments in service of answering a question. That's a big deal because it slows people down in the process and keeps extroverts basically from dominating the group, and it gets everybody heard in the process. The process is a coaching process, by the way, and it uses the 4 questions that we've talked about before, the what, who, how, and the open-ended questions. These are questions that engage people. But again, you can only talk in a meeting like this if you're being asked a question. In the beginning, the problem presented, the person, could be the CEO, could be anybody, brings the problem to the group, 4 to 8 people, typically run by a coach. 4 to 8 people to solve this problem. So the CEO would come in and lay out, or the supervisor could come in and lay out the problem, and then be subjected to some questioning by the group. Those questions would follow sort of 4 cycles, like we've talked about before. But this time I have them quadrated into like a clock because I want you to think in terms of amount of time. You want to spend at least equal amounts of time, at least dedicate time to certain sections. For example, if you only had 12 minutes, if you look at a clock that's 12, 3, 6, and 9, you could devote 3 minutes to each of these sections. Or if you had an hour, you could devote that much more time to each section. But you want to make sure you devote time to these sections, which is the reason I used a clock here. A lot of times people skip over, for example, the problem statement and developing what the problem really is and move right into solutions, which is a huge mistake because you end up getting a great solution to the wrong problem. Again, the who, what, how questions should be asked in each section. First, the problem section. You want to ask who, how, what, who's involved, what's the problem, how does it look to you, could you describe it for me, those sorts of questions. The current status. Right now, what's the current status of this problem in your organization? If you don't do anything about it, what will that do to the organization, etc.? Get a good reading on the impact, the emotional impact, the financial impact of that issue. Then, what's the ideal state? What's the ideal state? This is the 3rd section of the discussion. What's the ideal state? What would that look like? If things went really well in the future, what would our performance appraisal system look like? Have people diagram it, get it out there, and if they don't have the information, they can go get the information for the next meeting. And then finally, what's the plan? What's the accountability plan? So in other words, who's going to do what by when? And we want everybody in the group to do something before the next meeting. A lot of times these action learning teams or these decision-making teams are teams that go out and have to go collect it and come back for yet another iteration, which is why I have this arrow showing it's cyclical. Then they come back for 2nd or 3rd or 4th meeting, each time bringing something more back to the table so it builds on itself. This is what I call the coach approach to decision making because it takes into account both coaching methodology and action learning methodology. Good stuff if you want to solve hard problems, build great teams, and save a lot of money. And who doesn't? Thank you.